Welcome to Power Movers, the podcast where we empower business owners and entrepreneurs to reclaim their time, master their systems, and live the life they love. From leveraging AI to implementing business operating systems that bring clarity and focus, to exploring the transformative power of wellness practices like breathwork, meditation, and cold exposure, we cover it all. We'll dive into the tough conversations about mental health, share practical tools to help you harness the power of your mind and your body, so you can feel better, perform better, and achieve more. Join me, Roy, as we uncover strategies, share inspiring stories, and explore the tools that will help you move your business and your life to the next level. So, I'm here with Lorraine. And Lorraine, it's not very often that you come across somebody that has a massively transformative story, goes through that journey, and then really jumps into helping other people in life. And I've just read Lorraine's book. I am Lorraine, and my mom's name's Lorraine, so that's a good synchronicity right there. And loved it. I thought it was really good. I loved rawness of it, and just being yourself and really digging into that way. So I recommend you read that. And I want to welcome Lorraine to Power Movers, and let's find out a little bit more about her story and her journey and what's life all about.
Thank you very much for having me on your podcast, Roy. An honor, and thank you so much for taking the time to read the book. Yes, it's raw. It absolutely is. It's unfiltered. It's real. I didn't want to write something that was tinted through an unrealistic lens. I wanted to tell the raw, honest truth as it was and really hone in on where I got to. And then, of course, I would never have had the capacity to write a book unless I had turned that around. And that, for me, is the powerful message that I want to share with other people. And as you say, in relation to helping others, ultimately, that is my main goal. That's all I want to achieve from having gone through this process.
Very, very natural goal. So let's go back a little bit, Lorraine. Yeah, I think the first part of your story and your journey, living the way you did on the farm, all of that, just that really was really great for me to read because it set the scene so well. And you are blessed to have lived that life. Tell us a bit about the crazy Lorraine running around and getting into barns and doing all sorts of things you shouldn't have done. I did lots of that myself as a kid.
Wild and carefree. That's so lovely of you to say. I think it's quite apparent that I am Irish, even though I've not lived in Ireland now for pretty much 20 years. Growing up in a rural part of Ireland, coming from an agricultural background, was just so idyllic. And it's something often during the stages of our early years and developmental years, we often don't appreciate our surroundings because we're just kids and the beauty of it all. And now at this age and stage in life, when I cast back to my early years, it was fabulous. It was so nurturing. It was healthy and outdoorsy. And today we live in a world that's so focused on mental health, mindfulness, being in the moment, being outside in nature and connecting with nature. My whole life was full of that to start with. And there was so much freedom in it. It was pre-mobile phone, let alone Apple devices. It was pre-mobile phones. And so it was a different time where you had to tap into the creativity of your mind if you got bored and use your imagination to entertain yourself and with your siblings. And of course, being Irish, I have millions of cousins. Yeah, it was wonderful. I wouldn't change a thing about it.
I love the way that you demonstrated through your writing the connection back to the land and the connection to the stories and to the folklore. And that's something that, must be so valuable to you.
Absolutely. And I think everyone in this world has their own uniqueness, don't they? Because of their nationality, race, creed, background, all the core conditions that we adhere to and live by that shape us up as individuals. And to me, I think there is something very unique about being Irish and having being brought up in that type of background. And it was still at a time as well where often during our summer months, we would go to what we refer to as Gaeltacht area, which are fully fledged Irish speaking areas. They're pockets in Ireland that still exist today, and go to Irish summer school. And these Gaeltachts are still running. And so it was that opportunity to actually do everything. The sports that you would engage in during the day, Irish school, Céilís every single night, and do it through the Irish language and not through English. And that in itself was such a thing of beauty. I've always loved speaking Irish. It was one of my favorite subjects in school. I think it sounds beautiful. It's very unique to us as a nation. And it's tapping into that tradition and the importance of keeping that alive. And of course, Kaylee dancing then at nighttime was a whole the ball came up on. And so I've got like really special memories of those opportunities. And even though collectively my time in Gaeltacht wasn't a massive amount of time, but it was very special. It holds a special place in my heart. I went there with my cousins, and so I wanted to include it in the writing.
Amazing. Yeah, I found that, really good. I enjoyed that a lot. And then here, I'm going to walk through some stages in the book and just get people to understand the power of your story a little bit, and then encourage them to go out, buy the book and read it. And you went through, you didn't like your sport very much, did you? Yeah, didn't like going and playing the sports. You liked the camaraderie, but find yourself in the kitchen getting caught out a few times.
The fact of the matter is, the absolute truth, still today, is that when it comes to ball-eye coordination, I just really don't have that talent going on for myself. I did laterally become really interested in fitness, running,
Modern that.
recently, yes, hiking, going to the gym. I was a fitness instructor actually for many years. But when it came to sports and team sports, it certainly wasn't my best talent.
We'll learn. What we enjoy doing, we do more of. What we don't enjoy doing, we do less of, right?
Oh, and I definitely sidelines that a lot.
And then you moved from there, and you moved into your adult career, I guess you would call it, from there. And that's where life started throwing you some challenges, and really a good roar, good nasty. So tell us a bit about that.
It certainly did, and I'm so grateful today that I can very openly speak about these things in a quite a comfortable way without feeling a sense of guilt or shame or trauma, or I can speak without it being re-traumatizing. And so as a young student, first of all, when I was 20 years old in Cork, I was attacked one night on a night out. Very unknown to me. I wasn't expecting it. I had a few drinks, young student out at a nightclub, and this predator basically just honed in on me. I was none the wiser. I was thinking this was an opportunity to get a lift home. And what ensued that evening was nothing short of horrific. It was like something somebody might watch in a movie, but it was real life playing out. And I genuinely that night feared for my own life. It was a very violent incident. I was trapped in a room. There was a sexual assault as well, through sheer fight and flight. And just in the panic of it all, when I cast back now, I'm absolutely amazed at the strength I was able to muster to fight this man who was much stronger than me away. It's remarkable. I find it really difficult to fathom how I managed to do that, but I did. And so it was a very close escape, but I was still trapped there overnight and had the absolute shame of an embarrassment of having to break out the following morning and run through the streets of Cork with ripped clothes the next morning back to my student accommodation, where I then pretty much locked the door of my bedroom and hid and shook for days. And what's remarkable with a situation like this is there are so many people out there who have these experiences. Yet I was so terrified and traumatized. I didn't have the capacity or the support or the know-how to reach out and do what you would think any rational person would do in these situations. Like, for instance, go to the police, go to the doctor, reach out to friends. I was just in such a massive trauma response. And actually, here's the thing that's so sad for other people like me who are victimized is that I genuinely thought it was all my fault. I must have asked for it somehow.
So sad.
And I don't say that in a self-pitying way. I'm just saying it as a matter of fact way.
Mm.
Because I think when I speak like that, and that's my raw truth, it resonates with so many people all over the world who've had similar experiences. That feeling of silence and the shame that we feel that we're enveloped in, and the panic and the levels of anxiety that are literally through the roof. And so sometimes for somebody who's not had an experience like this in life, they find it difficult to understand, why would you not just go to the police?
Yeah, yeah.
But for anyone who's a survivor of trauma like this, they 100% get it.
Yeah. And I guess that's the power of you telling your story, is that if people can just understand that they're not alone, if they can understand that this is horrifically something that's quite common, then just maybe if you can help one person get help beforehand, then what you've done already. That's really what the power of helping and telling your story is, isn't it?
Absolutely. That's why you and I are here having this conversation at all. It's what I'm wholeheartedly invested in. I will absolutely make it my life's purpose to keep finding my sense of courage and speaking out with a view to helping people as much as possible.
And even after that horrific event, you were young. You then carried on journey, put everything down, headed away, and carried on. And tell us the next parts of your journey.
So,
What were you doing? And
the capacity, or sorry, the propensity to live in denial after that incident was enormous. And so that was my survival mechanism, to not allow myself to think about it, to just tell myself to just get on with life. You're okay. Don't worry about that. It was your fault anyway. So the best thing you can do is just not speak about it and everything will be okay. And this was as a young student who didn't know any better, quite frankly. And then the following year, I was studying in Dublin. And on another night out, I came across a man who is a professional sportsman. He's Australian, and a young woman who really didn't have any confidence, if I'm totally honest, and certainly didn't think too much of myself, was just in awe of the fact that this guy who I thought was very good looking and very successful in sport and sporty started giving me attention. And so as that particular night ensued, I brought him back to my flat in Dublin. And what proceeded to happen there was the most violent incident I've ever experienced in my life. He was nothing short of barbaric. And the reality of that encounter was that this particular man was very successful in sexually assaulting me. And that was what he set out to do without question. It was a horrific act of violence. And again, I thought it was my fault, especially because of the circumstances in this incident. I invited him to my apartment. And as a young woman who didn't really have masses of experience, I genuinely thought then, you invited him back, so it's all your fault. And so I said nothing to anybody.
it's so sad. And all of our youngsters these days, we're not schooled. They're not schooled in what to do and what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. My daughter's 21 years old, and unfortunately, she's had some of the same kind of challenges. Not, I don't believe, would you share them? I don't believe it's as horrific as that sounds, but it does as a parent. It fills me with, so much fear that, what more can we do to make sure, that youngsters understand that? And what you're doing is just amazing from that point of view. So thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. Roy, I'm so sorry to hear that your daughter has had this experience. And what I would say, and hopefully she will listen to this interview at some point, is that Gavin Matty said you can 100% heal from any trauma wound. That can be any kind of trauma. And as someone who's really invested in self-development and my own healing journey, I wholeheartedly believe that to be true. We do need to seek out the right help and put action into working on it. But it's absolutely possible for anyone who wants to get over a traumatic incident that they might have experienced. And the other thing I think is really relevant and important to mention here is in the moments where I'm worried about particularly my children and also my family, my Irish family. I'm a single parent to 3 children, and they're the best things I've ever done in my life. And they're sacred. They are just so precious to me. And so in the moments where I worried about speaking out and how it would impact them, and I did pause for quite a considerable amount of time to factor all these things in, the people in particular that are the most important to me. And I would always come back to the same resolve. And that would be, to me, as a female, as a person, a mother to children, a daughter, a sister, an aunt, a cousin, a friend, an upstanding member of the community. I feel it's my responsibility to speak out, because what happens is, and I've had a huge opportunity over the last few years to really delve into the psychology and the psychological impact of what happens to people who suffer from this type of trauma. And so by me speaking out and standing in my power, what it helps to do for me, but also for my children and everybody else, is it helps to break the cycle of these things being on repeat. And so, yes, I absolutely had to consider my children and how they might feel about me speaking out about topics that, let's be honest, are very sensitive. And often society, and this is my own experience of speaking out about these things, society doesn't always want to hear it. It's not always well received. People close the door on this information. Even when you reach out to people that you know quite well, they don't always want to know about it. Not because they're bad people, by the way. It's just that it's so uncomfortable for them.
Yeah.
And so it takes a really strong person. And I do believe I'm a very strong individual today, emotionally strong, to have the bravery to just say, this is what's happened to me. I'm not embarrassed to say it. And I certainly don't feel any sense of shame anymore. And I
Good.
wholeheartedly would say to anybody, it's absolutely not my fault. And so by saying that with so much conviction, I think that's powerful in itself.
Yeah. Now, take us a little bit, this idea of PTSD, is struggling with trauma. It's so misunderstood by us as a society. We hear the words, and even when you've had the experiences, and I've had a few myself, even when you've had the experiences and you really are at the bottom of that well of despair, you get way down there, and we don't necessarily know what it is. And from your book and from what I've read, you're really going to go through this lifelong journey, just accepting, putting everything down, suppressing it. And how did that play out for you?
So I was an expert at putting a lid on everything for quite a long time, years in fact. And I actually managed to get on with life. I just got on. And isn't hindsight a wonderful thing? And also when you laterally get to have an education on these things. So what I realize now is that putting a lid on trauma that intense will only contain itself for so long. It's always going to resurface somewhere in life. It might take years and years, as it did in my case, almost 2 decades. And it resurfaced pretty much out of the blue at one point. So if you fast forward in life, I'm now married. I have 3 wonderful children. I have a fitness and nutrition business. Life's pretty amazing. And then one day out of the blue, literally, it felt like it all came about overnight. I started to have flashbacks and panic attacks, like major panic attacks. I was hyperventilating. I literally could not breathe. The health visitor used to come to the house and help me out of hyperventilation, which sometimes used to take up to 4 days. And breathing in and out of paper bags. I was agoraphobic, PTSD response. So I'm in crisis right now. But at that point, I made no link to the fact that this was as a result of what happened to me when I was a young student. I never really put the pieces of the jigsaw together. I couldn't fathom. I kept saying, what's wrong with me? I don't get it. I'm always so together and disciplined and focused. Why can't I get a handle of this?
Powerful mind, isn't it?
Uh,
Keep protecting us.
And I believe that the conscious mind can keep a lid on something like that for so long until the brain is ready to process it a bit better. And it's a common thing that happens with trauma survivors, actually. And I was at an older point in life, obviously not ideal ever to have to go through that process and that healing. But it is what it is. I have full acceptance for it all now, and I'm comfortable with what happened and how it transpired. Sometimes the understanding of these things can be really helpful. And then there's the knowing and acceptance, and then really action orienting. What am I going to do about it now?
Yeah. And then through that process, you struggled with alcohol. You went into a rough journey there. And being Irish, that's got to be difficult, right?
So absolutely, thank God, thank my higher power that I have faith today, and that today as long as I keep on top of maintenance and what I need to do, I can stay abstinent from alcohol. But absolutely, I developed a dependency on alcohol. What was happening for me was that if I had a glass of wine in the evenings, I didn't have a panic attack. Now, that didn't necessarily mean I had to have a glass of wine or several every evening, but it worked as medicine for me for a while. And I was like, excellent. I would think to myself, fantastic. I've got a solution to this. And if wine's going to work for me and then I can go and sleep and function the next day, that's absolutely what I'm doing. I never really stopped to think too much. And then in the course of a couple of years, it really got a grip on me. It got a hold of me. So even when I wasn't drinking, my mind was consumed with thoughts about when I was next going to drink. And I don't want to ruin too much of the story, but let's just say it took me to horrendous places. And that wasn't just about the alcohol. The alcohol was the symptom. And the alcohol was what I was using at this point to self-medicate. But it was the trauma and the impact of the trauma and all those symptoms behind it collectively brought me to a point where I was suicidal. I hit a rock bottom. And in all honesty, it's an absolute miracle I survived.
I'm glad you did, so you could be here to talk to him.
Aren't I lucky? Yeah, thankfully.
And I've been there, and we'll talk about that in the future, I'm sure. The thing that kind of, if we transition now into, your journey of getting out of the hole, and, we're Wim Hof instructors. I haven't walked on fire yet, I will do that at some point, and, or on the coals. And, how do we get ourselves into these things, right? It's like, who has a good idea? This, okay, I'm going to get into an ice ball. I'm from Africa. The thing in the sky, the big orange thing, it works there in Africa. So we like the ball. And to find myself in an ice bath was something I never thought I'd do. Wow. The transformational journey that was for me. Really, the breathwork, the ice bath. being able to actually calm your mind down, learning how to breathe. I was 47 years old before I learned how to breathe. Right. And it just blows my mind. So give us a little bit about that, about your journey, how you got into the Wim Hof, the firewalking, all these amazing things you've been doing.
So, as a fellow Wim Hof instructor, yeah, I think we will have an awful lot in common with regards to the why. And so, as somebody who had been in states of panic, to have an opportunity to learn about this method, the Wim Hof method, and use breathwork as a tool to help
Yeah.
ground me and feel more relaxed and help to get me out of fight or flight and to ease symptoms of panic. It's been an absolute game changer in my life. And so there was huge appeal in that. There wasn't so much appeal for me in the cool stuff. So even though I didn't grow up in South Africa, and Ireland isn't exactly a warm country, but I've always had an aversion to the cold. Like, I have always taken hot water bottles as comforters and really not enjoyed the feeling of being cold. And so that was a bit of a revelation, but I had heard from so many people that this was transformative, that it was really good for healing. And I just thought, you know what have I got to lose? I might as well try it out. And we're in the middle of lockdown at this point, and a friend had suggested I try it. I Googled Wim Hof. I thought I want to learn about what this guy is all about. I thought it'd be cool to do it. And I saw there was a fundamentals course you could do. And then me being me, I remember clearly this is a Sunday morning, so I hadn't even tried any cold exposure yet. I hadn't tried any breath work. I hadn't even looked at the fundamentals course that you could do online. But I signed up to the fundamentals course, and within 10 minutes, I'd signed up to become an instructor. I just thought, you know what? If I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it. And I tend to be, when I make decisions in life that for me are clear cut, I'm all in. I'm not going to have access. I'm all in. And so signed up to both courses. And then I thought to myself, to just see what all this sea swimming business is about. And so off I went down to my local beach, ran into the water without really understanding the protocol and how we do it. And it lasted maybe 10 minutes. Again, ran out, and I was like something prancing around out of something like the crying game. Not looking too glamorous at all, and went home and warmed up. But what happened later on that day was this feeling of elation. So I felt like I had conquered something, and I thought, wow, I've just gotten into the North Sea without a wetsuit and cold conditions. This is really cool. And now I feel really good. And so I was intrigued by that, and then got all into the methods. Obviously went to Wim Hof Base Camp like you and did the training. And a year later, I went back to become a level 2 instructor because I loved it so much.
Yeah, awesome. Let's just on vision. Yeah. I wish I'd learned this so much earlier in life. And helped me with so many of the challenges I had. Well, let's go back. You were a business owner. You are a business owner. Been through that business journey, and a lot of the people listening to the podcast are business owners. And tell me a little bit about your business journey, because I'd be really keen to understand more about that. How did you stop? What was that time when you said, you know what? I'm done with working with this. I'm going to have my own business.
I've always felt an inclination to be entrepreneurial. My dad and all his siblings have all been successful entrepreneurs. So there's a legacy there, and they lead by example. And it's a great model to follow suit with. You grow up with a sense of self-belief that, oh, I could do that. So that was one of the things, for sure. And I've always been quite ambitious as well, if I'm honest. And I had been working in the corporate world, really enjoyed my job.
What did you do?
So I was a recruitment consultant, managing a team of consultants, but my main remit was really to go out and bring new business in for the agencies I worked for. And I loved that client-facing element, negotiating contracts. I loved making deals and all that kind of fun stuff. But ultimately, I was starting to feel like being in an office environment, 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, wasn't for me. And I had a great career in it, actually. I was still really young at this point. I'm maybe, let me think, mid-20s, and already making plans to set up my own business. And I just thought, if I can create something where I'm working off my own steam, I believe in myself, I know I'm hardworking and disciplined, and it's something I really enjoy because I want to love what I'm doing. And if it can help boost people's self-esteem and make them feel better about themselves, that's what I want to do. And so I basically was going to these fitness classes in Edinburgh. I liked the look of the business model. I could see it really working well. And I decided I was just going to do that. And so I trained as a fitness instructor, a specific type of fitness called Callinetic. It's a blend of ballet, dance, stretching, yoga, and Pilates, that type of thing. And part of me thought, I'll give it a year. And if it's not successful, I'll turn my hand to something else. But I want to try this and just see. And I could see a gap in the market in my local area for something like this as well. And at the very least, I made the assumption that it will at least keep me fit and get me into a fit physique. And so I started to market classes and PT sessions while actually doing the training. I qualified and got my certification, say, on a Saturday. And as of the Monday morning, I was already fully booked for my first week, running full classes, PT sessions, and I fell in love with it. I absolutely loved it. I was one of the first women in Scotland to start running any kind of outdoor fitness classes. And I just thrived on it. It was wonderful. And then 2 years into doing that, I decided to study to become a nutritionist and then a sports nutritionist. So I added those elements on, which I felt complemented it all. And I did that for many years and absolutely loved it. So I've become...
Well, yeah, let me come back a bit because there's a part of that story that for me is always so interesting. So there you are, you're in the recruitment world. It's a cutthroat business. It's crazy. You're working long hours, but you're making a lot of money because you can do it if you're good. Yeah, and it sounds like you're good. And then you decide, you know what, I'm going to go from making 100 grand a year or whatever it was to nothing and start my own business. Yeah, what was that process like for you?
So it's funny that you mentioned that. And these things for me, it's not all about money, right? But
That's right.
if
But
we're
when you
using
when it does,
if we're using it as a gauge, as a benchmark, I am quite goal oriented. And I decided for myself, if I was going to make this work, I need to match what I'd been earning in recruitment by doing something that fitness oriented, where I'm working on a self-employed basis. And if I can achieve that, then it's sustainable. And I did. And actually, it superseded that.
amazing, good.
Yes, I had the flexibility of renting studios and various other venues here and there while having time off in the middle of the day. Don't get me wrong. If you're out there who's ever been self-employed, all your client base would completely understand that when you're working for yourself, like I am still today, I put long hours in, but there's something very different about having ownership of that and really loving what you do. Often for me, it doesn't feel like work. And so probably one of the best decisions I ever made to make that shift.
Yeah. And the status, so you've got to step and go. You've got to go into it. And you've got to just believe in yourself. And I think that's the thing that, I'm lucky to, I know I can make money. I've always been able to make money. And money that will come to me. And having that belief in yourself It's such a formative thing to be able to go and say, I want to go and try something. Yeah, and at one stage, my family and friends, I had a rule: one business in, one business out. I wasn't allowed to talk about businesses because I was, just chasing all the shiny stuff. And yeah, right, when you're doing the stuff you love, it really doesn't feel like work. And being able to own it yourself and being able to decide what you're doing. I'm permanently unemployable now. I don't know. I don't think I'd be employable because there's just yeah, in me that you go to a 9 to 5. I guess I would if I had to, I would. And so you went through that stage, and life was good on the outside and crushing you on the inside. And you then went through, and you've done some amazing things. And we're not going to go into too much detail on them because I let the people read that in the book. As you said. But you've qualified as a Wim Hof instructor level 2. You've done firewalking. That's it. I'm going to go ice and fire. Let's go both extremes on the thing. Or you did the other way around, I think. Yeah. And what other things have you done? Where's that led you in terms of? I love traveling, and I just love living in the moment and being in the now. And I found the breathwork was my way into meditation. Because my mind was just so busy all the time. I could never ever meditate. And then I did 1 round of breathwork, or 3 rounds of breathwork, and I was like, "What just happened? My mind stopped. What happened?" Yeah. And through the years, I've now gone Joe Dispenza. I'm loving his work. I've been to a few of his retreats, and they really are transformative. What was that like for you? In terms, what was the rest of your journey? Just almost in bullet points, to sort of leave the guy some intrigue in your book.
It's so multifaceted. One of the common denominators for me with all of the things that I embark in today and the new skill sets that I've added on over the last few years is that I'm so invested and interested in anything to do with mental resilience. And so that's usually woven in through different things that I explored and gained further qualifications in, and then have them as offering to various people who want to engage with me. And so it's funny that you mentioned ice and fire. To me, yes, the conditions and the environment is starkly different, but the mind process is very similar.
Yes.
So you'll fully understand, Roy, when we get into ice bath. And I still do cold showers every morning. I do breath work every week. I do regular ice baths. I am a wild seeing women leader. To get into freezing cold water, there's a surrendering process at the heart of that. You clear your mind. There's also a sense of belief that becomes instilled when you put this type of thing into practice. And I often think of the word courage in these moments. So as somebody who is in a state of panic constantly and full of fear, I learned and taught myself how to incorporate a degree of courage. And so the fear is often and sometimes still present in these moments where you're about to engage in something that's a challenge. And so the fear can often be there, but I learned to connect the breath, clear my mind, surrender, and really adopt a greater sense of courage and just go for it. And it's no different doing that and getting into the waterfall at Wim Hof Base Camp, a freezing cold ice bath, or equally walking on fire. If anything, MC, I would say he wants to compare the two. Walking on fire takes a little bit, for me, less mind preparation, but it's a very ritualistic experience. And I genuinely believe in the experience I've had with firewalking so far is if I'm not fearful, I won't get burnt. I've never burnt my feet, not yet. Now, it's obviously possible, but it's about clearing your mind. And so it's really grounding and you're so present. If you've ever read or come across Eckhart Tolle's Power of Now, so you're not in the past, you're not in the future, you're right here, right now. And that's where happiness is, where a sense of peace. For me, these moments are usually very spiritually centered. And so now that I have this ability and this adaptability to clear my mind and tap into a greater sense of mental resilience, I now use that as a process for everything I do in life, for finding the courage to write the book and put it out there. But also, I've done lots of other things. I love a bit of an adventure. I've done a hike to a few mountains, quite big piece for me as a novice mountain climber. And there were sections of mountain terrain where you're in crampons. It's pretty serious stuff. You're walking on very narrow ridges. You're roped up. Weather conditions can change. People die. People die in these situations. But because I've learned to clear my mind and tap into the mental resilience, I'm so focused. There's no fear in these moments. And it all goes down to as well what coexists in this place of mental resilience for me. It's absolute, sheer and utter, unfaltering self-belief. And this self-belief I can now incorporate to everything I do. So much so that with regards to the I Am Lorraine book, I truly believe, and it would be lovely to fast forward a couple of years and see where it goes. I want this to become a movement, not just a book that I'm putting out there. And that actually had nothing to do with me. It's not ego-centered at all. I just genuinely believe that it's a time in life, a bit like the Me Too movement, that the world wants to grapple and a bit more hope and instigate change, improvements to the legal system, and speak out and shout out more and say, look, this happened. It's not okay. Now, what are we going to do about it as a society, as a human race?
Yeah, yeah. Totally agree. Totally agree. And I think, yeah, the power of now, talking about Eckhart Tolle and the power of now, and, you know, this is why we do these crazy things, because it really brings you into the moment, right? Brings you just, we've only got so much energy in the day. You know, when we think about the past, we send the past our energy. The future, we send the future our energy, and then we don't have that much energy in the day. So whatever we can to bring ourselves, into the moment and into the now, it just allows us to have a good day. And coming to your purpose and coming to your vision and coming to what you believe in, you know, now that you have that clarity, you can go forward and you can create your movement and you create and do the change in the world that you want to do. I wish you so very well on that journey, because you have enough power. You've shown you have enough power to get through everything. And now it's just a case of applying and carrying on doing what you're doing. So what's next for you? Do you have more books in the pipeline? Obviously, you do speaking engagement, and that's amazing, and lots of good things out there. What's next for Lorraine?
Irons and a few fires, actually. Would you believe? I suppose the most important thing I'm doing at the moment is really making sure the launch of the book goes really well. I'm off to a fantastic start. We're on day 4 now of consecutive days of it being #1 in hot new releases. And which is incredible, really, for someone who has written a first book. I'm self-published. It's almost unheard of to have that type of start, especially in such a flooded market where there are so many books out there at any one given time. So I feel really honored. And that's just testimony to the interest people have in these types of topics. And of course, I'm raising the bar, because in writing the book and putting it out there, I'm saying to everybody, I don't feel stigmatized. This is my story. And so I'm saying with so much confidence, and people will respond to that because they want to feel the same way. So that's happening. But also, I'm launching myself out there for more and more keynote speaker events, which is also a wonderful opportunity. And of course, doing all these fantastic things, Roy, like training in Wim Hof Base Camp. Now, as a level 2 instructor, it means I'm qualified to take people up extreme conditions in shorts and snowy mountains using advanced breathwork technique. There's the firewalking, hiking. It means I have a lot of interesting content and my own stories and anecdotes that I can weave into how I demonstrate and encourage people to feel motivated to want to make changes in their own lives. And we can do all these things with a bit of a sense of humor. I love having an opportunity to laugh at myself. It doesn't need to be serious. So I have a series of events on the calendar for this year. Some of them are quite big events, like global summit, keynote speaker events for huge numbers of people. And a few years ago, if someone had told me I would be doing these things, I would have thought to myself, there's no way I'll be able to stand up in front of all those people without my knees knocking. But it's all tying into that sense of courage that I now have. And I'm also involved in another writing project. It's a co-authoring project called Start Over. And it's a fantastic thought leader, business coach. He's quite a phenomenal guy, actually, called Sir Marco Robinson. And he came up with the idea to create this movement. And so there are 140 authors from around the world, each with their own inspirational stories, who will all feature in a chapter of a series of books. And so the series of books is called Start Over. And it is, the strapline for it is turn any loss into a sensational comeback. So they're all inspirational stories. We are going on a world speaking tour to promote the series of books. And there's a whole host of other things going on as part of this movement. So it's complementing me launching my own book. It's just enforcing the power of inspiring others who are having struggles in their life, regardless of what the struggle is, and encouraging a sense of hope. And just putting it out there for people that we all have it within us to make the choice to change. And this is how we've done it. So we're trying to lead by example with that.
If anybody wants to get hold of you, if anyone wants to learn a bit more, obviously your book, I Am Lorraine, is on Amazon. And I'm sure there'll be an Audible version soon. Yeah, just putting some pressure on there. And so how can people get hold of you? And what channels can they reach you on?
I just started a new Instagram page, which is growing already quite quickly, called @IamLorraine. And I have a new landing page as well, a website in development. And we're adding lots of different service offerings and various other valuable bits of information for anyone who's interested in wanting to become unstuck in life, finding a greater sense of happiness and peace. Everything I'm putting out there is going to encourage that type of person to want to engage with me. And that is also called I Am Lorraine. So it's iamlorraine.com. We're trying to streamline everything and keep it really simple so that people can find me if they want my help.
Amazing. Thank you very much for joining me. That's been amazing chatting to you. And I look forward to your amazing success. That's already happened.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your time, Roy. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you a million.
Thank you for tuning into Power Movers. I'd love to hear your thoughts, questions, or ideas for future episodes. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn, Facebook, or Instagram. Or drop me an email at roy@allthepower.co.uk. I'd love to hear from you. Remember, the content in this podcast is for informational purposes only. Always consult a qualified coach or professional before making significant decisions. Until next time, keep moving forward, stay inspired, and live the life you love. Thanks for listening.